Under a beautiful blue sky, they tell him to take a look. It was the super rare silver slime. It was already the fourth one, and the guy behind the tree tells him not to draw attention. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, someone comes running, and he shouts for the guy to wait. But the kid cuts in first, landing a critical hit on the first, the fourth, the second, another critical hit, the third, the fourth, and with that, everything's dead. The player Takahashi Yukiko had just received 3 S-rank items: the armor, the gloves, and the boots from the silver slimes. The dude in the green hood can't believe it. Yeah, from what he noticed, that was 3 critical hits. The blonde says she saw the same thing. And besides that, why did it look like every single drop was rare? The two of them could only think this guy was insanely lucky. The protagonist, looking at his inventory, thinks it's unbelievable, too good to be true. He really was being rewarded for all the suffering he went through in his past life, and we see him old as hell, an 85-year-old bronze rank hunter. Somebody give this man retirement already. He's working overtime. He's in the Tokyo dungeon, first floor, everyone's showing how the monsters are attacking the area. People decide what to do, scared to death, staying if those high-level creatures reach this place, all the beginners are going to die. A kid grabs the old man's shoulder, telling him this isn't the time to be hunting slimes, it's time for them to leave. But the old man just gives him a slap and walks off, ignoring everyone without saying a word. Obviously, the others decide to run. He's basically at death's door, which is true, so whatever. But then, foul play in the game. Someone shoulder checks the old guy and he falls awkwardly. The poor man gripping his sword says that decades have passed since the appearance of adventurers. By now, everyone was familiar with status windows, leveling up and killing monsters. The system is simple. You kill monsters, you level up, and along with that, your stats increase too. The guy complains that this time he only gained 5 strength. Others get magic, like that girl over there using a healing spell on Lightbulb Head. That was just a normal player. But our guy is the only level 98 with stats lower than 5. He says he worked his whole life, killed every slime possible. He swore he'd never give up. He just kept hunting, until he reached 98, killing nothing but slimes, nothing else. But then he cuts down one more and still can't believe nothing's changed. The max level was 99 and he knew something special had to happen. There's no way he was really destined to be a failure. He runs straight at the slime, smacks it with his bare hand, yelling for the bastard to die, tears apart with pure brutality, biting into it, and right then he levels up. Finally, he hits 99, trembling as he says this is the great reward for everything he suffered. But the system says he gained 1 point of strength. Just like that, his grand total reaches a hopping 6. The old man can't believe it. He slams the ground, asking if the world is playing with him. Had his entire life really been for nothing? At that moment, surrounded by creatures, he decides there's nothing left to expect from this world. The monsters that had been announced begin to appear and close in on him. For him, though, that was fine. His life had been miserable anyway. Everyone humiliated him, and he couldn't save his mother, who always took care of him. He even ruined his little sister's dreams. Finally, this cursed life ends with him being turned into slime. Death. That's all the little system says, until suddenly, the Matrix flashes up, announcing that a strange error occurred in Takahashi Yukito's system. To fix it, the only option was to roll back his life. As an apology from the system, he receives a secret parameter with 9999 points. His life ends, and he opens his eyes to someone congratulating him. From this moment on, he was an adventurer. The protagonist stands there, still not really understanding, glancing around. She asks if something's wrong. He says no, heads toward the pillar, and remembers this was the day he registered for the first time at the Adventurers Guild, March 15th. He also remembers a strange message about some kind of bonus he hadn't understood. He opens his status, and unfortunately, it looks the same as always. At least he already had those 6 points of strength, right? The ones that took him 85 years to get. But then he notices something weird in the bottom right corner of the screen, scrolls down, and asks himself, what the hell is this? The guy had 9,999 luck. He tries to calm himself down before freaking out, wondering if luck was even a real attribute in his past life. For him, it always felt like some secret thing nobody could even see. And still, it seemed insane that he had so much of it. So yeah, the man who spent 70 years hunting slimes in pure suffering now had unbelievable luck. Well, no harm in trying, right? So he decides it's time to hunt some slimes. On the dungeon's first floor, he looks around and sees the usual little blue ones. For him, that feels just like home. But then suddenly, something flashes by and he wonders if it's what he thinks. A super rare silver slime, the same monster he'd only seen once in 70 years of slime hunting, and unfortunately, it escaped immediately back then. That cursed thing gives a ridiculous amount of experience, but it's famous for running away fast. That's why Takahashi approaches it quietly. But then, out of nowhere, an arrow lands right by his foot. He's about to curse the bastard who's off in the distance apologizing, but then he notices the slime acting strangely, looking side to side, confused. He imagines it's about to escape, but instead, the creature lunges at him, and he can't quite make sense of it. The slime jumps again, launches another attack, and this time he counters, striking straight at the core in its head and shattering the creature. If there's one thing he knows, it's the weak spot in a slime. The problem is that his shabby little sword snapped on the first strike. Now he's going to need a new one. He's already thinking nothing's changed in this life when a golden glow catches his eye. He turns, stunned. The damn thing had dropped an S-rank weapon. And now that we know he's this lucky, I really want to know, does that luck carry over with the ladies too? He's excited, saying it's a good start, even though that sword had a high chance of raw attack since it came from a monster that's pretty evasive. He's eager to begin hunting, and that's when he spots 4 silver slimes in front of him. He wonders if he's dreaming, and the monsters charge at him. With no choice, he decides he has to deal with it, slashes again, landing critical. That was the moment everything began, when that rain of S-rank items fell to the ground. After that, he kept hunting for about another hour. In total, he found around 10 silver slimes, something that in his past life he'd only seen once in 70 years. On top of that, most of them were dropping rare loot, and the kid's backpack was already filling up. At that point, it was undeniable. His luck was way too good. He drops onto the grass smiling, saying that with this power, he could finally become someone, make his family happy, take care of his sick mother, and help his little sister. That's when he remembers he has a family. He wonders if they're doing okay. It had been 70 years since he last saw them. He wants to go home and meet them again. At that moment, I thought he'd make up some excuse to go elsewhere. But no, we're already there face to face with the old house, and he even wonders if it was on the 2nd floor. He walks past house after house until he sees the name Takahashi in front of one, Rue 203. He tries to calm himself, takes a deep breath, and tells himself it's okay. Just as he's about to gather the courage to open it, the door opens first and his little sister appears. Poor guy. Turns out he's got an e-girl in the house. Someone cut that hair of hers before she heads down the wrong path. Still, he hugs Nozomi, who wants to know if this is some prank, if there's a camera recording why he's acting like that. Yukiko, though, just swears that in this life he won't let anyone take away what's precious to him. The big mouth already told his sister that he's got super luck, and she wants to know if that means they can save their mother. He says of course all he has to do is work a little harder, but hey, say stuff like that and the bad luck wave comes. Sure enough, the next day, he sold that mountain of S-rank items for a fortune. With the money, the guy went to an auction and threw down 10,000 cash on the rarest recovery elixir. Now we're at the hospital. Damn, talk about the kid. 200 IQ. That's a protagonist who actually uses his head. His mother, miraculously, looks like a normal woman. For some reason, lately I've been reading stories where mothers look like honest-to-God actresses. She asks how they're doing, and the protagonist says he's the one who wants to know how she's doing. Nozomi hands her some food, but she says they shouldn't be wasting money on her like that. Obviously, our boy tells her not to worry about money anymore and says he's got a little present. Right then, he pulls out the potion, and Nozomi says she's proud of her brother for making money in the dungeon and buying it. Their mom wants to know how he managed to earn so much money when he just became an adventurer. The rascal says he was lucky. At least he wasn't lying. And without ceremony, their mother isn't one to stall. She grabs it, says, "Hand it over." Damn it. Takes a big gulp and starts glowing, throwing out an era. They ask how she's feeling, and she says she feels light and can even breathe better. He celebrates immediately, and his sister high-fives him, and then he tells her to eat the pudding already. After the elixir, her symptoms eased, the disease stopped progressing, and she started rehabilitation. With that, the story ended, folks. See you in the next video. Just kidding. We're heading back home. But what more could this kid even want? He already did everything he dreamed of, damn kid. Being the Chad he is, as soon as his mom recovered, he put her back into her natural habitat. His sister is all happy, but he says it still isn't enough. That potion had only been a temporary measure. It couldn't cure the disease 100%. She wants to know what they're going to do, and he answers that they need an L-rank potion. Man, he's never even seen one. Doesn't L sound like some loser rank? The item's name is Elixir. Real creative, and his sister says she's heard about something like that on TV. Apparently only the top adventurers in the world ever managed to get their hands on one. The worst part is that it's a rare item that only shows up on floors below 50, meaning the stronger you get, the harder it is to find. Unless, of course, you've got 999 luck. And the other problem is that the item's non-tradable. You can't sell it to anyone. His sister realizes that means they'll have to get it themselves, and he says that's exactly it. Now Nozomi wants to know if he can even make it to those higher floors. He says normally it should be impossible. His death would be like a dog getting run over in the street. She flinches, but he explains that normally that's how it would go. After all, the potion he gave their mom wasn't just luck. He also had the knowledge from his past life. He knows where elixirs spawn because even though he couldn't climb higher, he always studied every floor. That cursed translator tricked me. Turns out the elixir only drops from monsters above floor 50. The exception is the floor 20 boss, the ancient golem. Obviously, the tough part about that monster is not only that it's hard to kill, but it's also hard to even find. On top of that, it's rare for it to drop the item, which is why almost nobody knows about it. In his past life, it only happened once. But judging by how things are going now, it shouldn't be impossible for him. Nozomi says he's got that guilty face like he's planning something shady and tells him to drink some water, saying she knows he can do whatever he sets his mind to. The protagonist explains that there's a chance, but first he has to prepare a few things, because there's always a more efficient way to solve problems. The first thing he needs, obviously, is high-quality equipment. That S-rank sword of his, but with that nasty 30% miss debuff. His sister shows up and asks if he's heading to the dungeon, and he says yes. She thinks it's risky and tells him to buy armor, since the kid's basically wearing 3 rags. But he explains his stats are too low for that. True, now that I think about it, his attributes are still way too low. Okay, sure, he's insanely lucky, but how the hell is he supposed to fix that? Takahashi wants the answer to that himself. For now, his only option is to keep farming and see what happens. At least he's been gaining some skills that help him fight. Nozomi tells him that if he wants to get stronger and use armor, he needs to raise his stats, and she mentions something about the 15th floor. He confirms, saying yes, that's where the Crown of Alice is, a rare monster that drops a miraculous fruit. His sister wishes him luck, gives him some food, and tells him to be careful. I don't know why, but this family's way too happy. Any moment now, a meteor's gonna crash into that house. Now we're in the forest with carnivorous plants devouring bugs, and our protagonist really does look like a side character in that ragged outfit of his. Alice's dungeon, obviously, is surrounded by plants, and the biggest problem is that it's extremely easy to get lost there. The good part is, since it's one of the early floors, plenty of adventurers have passed through, and there's even a perfectly detailed map of everything. He walks for a while and reaches a spot that should, in theory, be the nest. The trees look normal standing still, but if you throw a rock at one, in theory, it moves. Right then, the creature rises to attack him, but he was already expecting it, saying his strike hit dead on, landing yet another critical. As long as you know where the surprise attacks come from, this place isn't that hard. Obviously, after killing one, the bastard immediately gets a rare drop. He eats it, saying it tastes kind of like an apple, but that detail doesn't matter at all. What he was interested in was that right there. He had gained another point in strength. Those fruits were extremely rare, so normally it wasn't a viable strategy to farm them just to raise your attributes. Unless, of course, you were some bastard with 999 luck who could spend all day in the dungeon dropping and eating, dropping and eating. And sure enough, the kid had already gained 27 more strength, plus 13 and 14 and everything else. Guess I take back what I said. Problem solved for him. He decides it's time to head back for today when something suddenly brushes past his back. He turns around startled and someone warns him that this isn't a good place to hunt. 2 guys with the most honest-looking faces in the world ask who he is, but Yukihito immediately realizes these bastards aren't adventurers at all. They're trackers. One of them, biting at his ankle, mocks that the spoiled brat with his expensive gear is done for. The other tells him to drop everything and get out if he wants to live. But then, out of nowhere, one of them is face down in the dirt. What just happened? The protagonist is thrilled because something activated correctly. The guy had used a technique called Bee Sting, something you only learn at level 25, so yeah, he was way above Yukihito. In theory, Bee Sting is an unavoidable strike, which is why it deals 30% less damage. But the protagonist had the Slime's Tear equipped, an item with a 1 in 3 chance to cut incoming damage in half. Since the strike already hit weak and then got halved, it basically did nothing. If it weren't for his luck, he'd have a hole in his stomach. But luck is the one thing he's got in spades. Now the short guy, barely a meter tall and fuming with rage, wants to know how Yamada got dropped by a single hit, and Yukihito tells him to surrender. Maybe he'll forgive him. But the guy shouts not to underestimate him, claiming he's deadly at long range. Yukihito agrees, saying fine then, since he can't fight at long range, let's make it even. He opens the system, pulls out his staff, and declares they'll fight fair. The whole area is filled with plants, and the big-headed guy is confused, wondering what kind of weapon that is. The protagonist explains it's the Staff of Nonsense, something he looted off one of those creatures. The guy instantly feels like he's already won. The Staff of Nonsense was rare, sure, but completely useless. It triggered random spells, most of them garbage. 40% chance to fail, 30% to cast a beginner spell, 20% to slap yourself with a debuff, and only 9% to pull off something decent. All in all, irrelevant. Now he just had to wait to claim victory. He starts preparing a fireball, confident that with his magic gear and 50 power, the fight's already over. And damn, look at that thing. The fireball's huge, bigger than him. He hurls it straight at the protagonist, who's just standing there yawning, saying, finally, you're done. Then Yukihito points his staff at the ground and boom, the end of the dinosaurs drops right on top of him. The protagonist just raises his arm, staff pointed to the sky, and suddenly his ball is way bigger than the other guy's. It crashes down and crushes him. The man can't take the hit, drops to his knees and tries to crawl away, stammering about how Yukihito managed to summon a meteor. But it's over. Another hit slams into his back, burning him completely, though in truth, he had already pissed himself before the explosion. The blast leaves a crater across the whole forest, and the poor guy's left in a state no one should have to see. The downside is he pushed the Staff of Nonsense so far it's shattered. Yukihito sighs, apologizing to both the guy's soul and his chubby friend, saying unfortunately his luck was just too much. But then he pauses, remembering these guys were criminals. He couldn't just leave them lying there. So he grabs some branches, ties the bastards up, and drags them through the forest. The madmen delivered them straight to the police. It's true he was already heading out, right? He even managed to squeeze in an extra quest. The next day, he shows up at the guild saying he's looking for a mission, but the receptionist immediately tells him the police had already reported everything and congratulates him for taking down the bandits. As a reward, she rings a little bell, congratulates him again, and says he's now been promoted to silver rank. Yukihito is completely confused. How? How did all this happen? He hadn't done anything special besides clearing a single dungeon. In this world, reaching silver rank is no easy feat. It takes countless dungeons and years upon years of effort. You have to kill hordes of monsters and gather all sorts of items to contribute, only then are you allowed to advance. The receptionist explains that this is a special reward for capturing 2 members of the Red Arm. He knows exactly who they are, one of those crawler organizations that plague countless dungeons, and she tells him that because of this incredible contribution, he's earned the equivalent amount needed to advance to silver. The protagonist realizes that meeting those 2 guys and choosing to turn them over to the police instead of leaving their corpses behind had been worth it. It was almost as if he had made the best possible decisions. He takes the badge, and the woman says she's looking forward to his future achievements. This was perfect for him because now that he was silver rank, he could go as far as the 30th floor. And considering that the creature carrying the elixir he wanted was on the 20th floor, he finally had what he needed. Immediately, that's exactly what he requests. The woman, however, asks him to take it slow. He had just advanced to silver. Wasn't it too soon to go for the harder levels? He thanks her for the concern, but of course he's going to do it. He's thrilled, having ranked up much sooner than expected. Maybe it was another influence of his luck. As he's leaving the association, an old man stops him, asking for a moment of his time. Yukihito asks what it is, and the man wants to know if he was the one who defeated the gangsters. Seeing the 2 idiots posted on the wall, the protagonist admits it. Yeah, those bastards tried to launch a sneak attack on him. Suddenly, the old man starts trembling, shining with tears in his eyes, and thanks the boy with all his heart. He pulls one of the posters down and says those scum had murdered his son. Not even the police had been able to find or stop them, but finally, they had been avenged. Yukihito says he didn't do anything special, he was just doing his job as an adventurer. But the old man breaks down crying, saying that now he can finally attend his son's funeral and tell him he was avenged. With that, the man walks away, while Yukihito realizes this is the first time since his previous life that anyone has ever thanked him for something he did in a dungeon. It was truly a different feeling. Just as his life was finally starting to improve, he remembered something painfully obvious. He had died an old man because the swarm of creatures that invaded Earth had been far stronger than most hunters. He wonders if there's anything he could do, but quickly comes back to reality. He had only just begun farming and growing stronger. There was nothing he could do about that yet. So he slaps himself back to focus. First and foremost, he had to make sure his mother stayed healthy. That was the priority. The scene shifts to a cave, tools scattered over a stone table, and a bald man slamming his fist, cursing. He can't believe those bastards had actually died. Now that other person wouldn't learn her lesson. On top of that, he wouldn't be able to pay the fee to his big brother. He grabs a dagger, glances at a newspaper, and vows that the bastard who ruined his plans would not get away unpunished. But then he suddenly calms down. He needed to be cautious. This guy had taken down 2 high-level fighters alone. At the very least, that meant he was strong. So he'd have to create the perfect plan first. And now the boy was out of luck because his plans never fail. The next day, Yukihito is already inside the 15th floor, the Solitary Mountain. A place with narrow passages and dangerous terrain where many people ended up falling and struggling to finish because of it. On top of that, since it's so hard to navigate, it's a spot famous for bandits. But with the luck he has, he knows he won't fall. He digs his sword into the wall, jumps, launches himself upward, and reaches the top of the mountain, only for an eagle to swoop at him. The plan is to keep leveling up until he's strong enough to challenge the 20th floor. He kills some armadillos, focusing on numbers, wipes out a few Pokemon-looking beasts, slays some bears, and of course he's always gathering piles of items. Meanwhile, the guy who wants him dead is watching from the shadows. The bastard can't believe it. Using nothing but a slime sword with no armor, Yukihito is soloing everything. Without a doubt, this has to be him. But he never expected the kid to show up right in his territory. He needs to calm down. No point attacking now. All he has to do is wait for the kid to let his guard down. Later at night, a protagonist lights a campfire, and the stalker realizes the brat plans to stay in this dungeon for a while. That sparks an idea for how to ruin Yukihito's life. He runs off remembering the ecosystem here. First, he hunts down the eagles, making sure they can't kill the other insects. Then he gumps tons of food for what look like shadow grasshoppers, which begin to evolve, devouring every other monster and spawning even more. They keep multiplying, and by the 4th wave, he's sure the plan is flawless. It'll all look like the common fate of an unlucky adventurer, swarmed and killed by monsters. Seeing the absurd number of creatures multiplying, he grins. Then he sprays them all with insect repellent. Immediately the bugs scatter, crawling upward and sideways in a frenzy. Looks like this guy's some kind of insect tamer. The monsters completely ignore him. Meanwhile, the protagonist is just farming honestly, lucky as hell, minding his own business, when he hears a strange noise. He looks back and sees a storm of monsters closing in. Those damn death locusts are coming in numbers he knows he can't handle alone. He quickly sheathes his sword and bolts. He needs to find other people to help him deal with this. At that moment, he remembers a conversation he overheard in his past life. Some adventurers talking about this dungeon, about a certain cave that made everything easier. He recalls the map and heads straight for the mountain that seemed to match the description. No time to hesitate. He slides in, lands on top of a golden toad, crashes against a wall, and shouts for help, hoping the panic will draw someone out. No answer. The monsters are coming, so he smashes the wall apart by force. And inside, oh damn, it's full of gad hunters. Clearly, he stumbled onto their hideout. Everyone's staring at him, and he asks if he's just found some weird hunter fetish den. They all shake their heads, and he says he figured as much, then starts cutting them loose. The rescued hunters cheer, saying everyone thought they were dead. Yukihito asks what happened. Pointing Head says they were attacked by trackers. The girl with glasses explains they were knocked out with some abnormal item. Another guy adds that they weren't killed. It's because they were meant to be sold. And the redhead without pants says they were probably destined for human trafficking. Taking all this in, Yukihito is sure now. This is the tracker's nest. That old method from his past life of earning easy points doesn't matter anymore. He starts piecing things together, remembering that in the future the police raid this place. Literally, a whole squad storming in. What could they even do against hunters? He doesn't know, but somehow they managed to stop the trackers. And to make sure that place wouldn't be used like that again, they eventually turned it into some kind of little diner or something along those lines. But Yukihito had discovered everything before the police even had a clue. Obviously, he didn't remember much about other people, since he'd spent 70 years doing nothing but hunting slimes. The problem was this had come out of nowhere, and now he had to make use of the people trapped there. That's when he tells everyone to listen up. He knows it's sudden, but a storm of death insects is heading their way. Everyone looks outside, sees it for themselves, and immediately starts asking where they came from and why there are so many. Events like this aren't uncommon. They're called monster panics, but usually they're never this overwhelming. Yukihito tells them they don't have time to understand. If they want to survive, they'll have to cooperate with him. The group is uncertain, but the Mohawk guy says with that many creatures, there's no chance of escaping. The brown-haired girl argues it's impossible anyway. They don't have weapons, armor, or the means to deal with this. The gray-haired one agrees, saying they lost everything to those damn trackers. But if there's one person with a full inventory, it's Yukihito. He tells them not to worry. With a swipe from his menu, a rain of items pours out, and he tells them to take whatever they need. They're confused, wondering why he's giving all this away. He says not to worry, they can even keep the stuff. Everyone's stunned. The items on the ground are all rare or above. How could someone be carrying so much gear like that? Now some of them start getting suspicious. No one has ever heard of this guy's name or seen him at the higher ranks, but there's no way a normal adventurer could have this much. Still, without making a fuss, everyone starts picking up gear and equipping it, saying now they got what it takes to fight. One guy puts on a horn helmet, a girl equips some outfit that looks like it's made to cheat on her man, while the blonde kid is amazed by the sword he got. The girl with glasses asks Yukihito if he's sure they can keep such rare items. He says yes, but in return, they'll have to follow his every command. They still look a little uncertain, but considering everyone's now glowing and pumped with new equipment, they agree. The horned girl says she'll nail the shots, and another says those monsters won't stand a chance. Yukihito is touched that they're acting like decent people, remembering the guy who once shoulder-checked him. Someone warns him that this is just the power of money. Nobody actually likes him, but he's still there, all smiles, thanking them, and now the whole group is showing that fake friendly grin. He explains that they'll use the narrow cave entrance to their advantage. The plan is for him to stand in front and draw the monster's attention, while the others surround and cut down anything that tries to flank him. Everyone agrees. He pulls out his sword and tells them to get ready for the fight, which basically means just stand there, since the monsters had been charging in for half an hour, but hadn't arrived yet. And of course, the moment I say that, one steps right under his feet, another gets cut down. Fireballs fly, another slash cuts across, a girl launches magic into the sky, and the entire mountain is surrounded. The problem is there are so many creatures that they're struggling to funnel through, and they've started chewing into the cave itself. At the entrance, things are getting tense. The group is getting tired, and the wave never stops. Yukihito realizes the narrow passage plan alone isn't enough. There's no way they can stop them all. And right then, the ceiling begins to shake. He tells everyone to hold their ground, not to break formation, but then the ceiling cracks completely. Now there's no formation at all. Everyone runs in different directions, every man for himself. Or not. Since they're in a cave, there's not much room to escape. The protagonist notices an abandoned mine shaft nearby, unstable but still there. On the other side, he also notices some dynamite lying around. Most likely, the trackers had planned to use it to expand that area, but now he could put it to use himself. I love how humble the insects are while he goes over, picks it up, and stares at it. They just wait patiently. Then he orders everyone to grab the dynamite, and these bugs turn out to be the friendliest creatures on the planet. Oh wait, just because I said that some of them up front are already tanking hits, weren't there supposed to be some dropping from above too? Yukihito says they fought desperately against those creatures for hours, until at one point only a triangle-shaped section of the cave remained with a hole opening up behind it. The girl says their only options are to jump and die or move forward and die. Even a horned guy carrying the heaviest burden a man can bear admits he can't handle it anymore. Yukihito looks back and says he didn't want to solve things this way, but it's the only option left. He calls everyone over, asks for the dynamite, and the group just decides to trust him blindly. His inventory is crammed, and he knows low-intelligence monsters usually target whoever seems the biggest threat. Since he's the one who killed the most, that target is him. More enemies come in from the redhead's side, and she warns there's nowhere left to run. That's when he gives the order for everyone to escape, and chaos erupts as they rush to get out. Meanwhile, Yukihito tells them to run without him. He'll handle this, and they can trust him. The storm of insects charges straight at him, and he thinks to himself that in this life, you have to take risks. But come on, you've got 9999 luck, bastard. What risk are you really taking? With a straight face and no shame, he lights 13 sticks of dynamite and leaps off the mountain, bidding farewell to the monsters. But then the system warns him. His chance of successfully detonating explosives is reduced by 50% because his proficiency is low. On top of that, his items are poorly arranged, which lowers the chances even more. But guess what? It worked anyway. The cavern fills with blinding light and everything explodes. The bugs pushing through the middle keep advancing toward Yukihito, who's losing his footing among the rocks, but he manages to find a path from one stone to another midair. At the same time, he slices through the last pillars holding up the cavern, bringing it all crashing down. Even so, the leader of the swarm is still alive. The creature charges at him, but Yukihito uses the bee sting technique and lands a perfect critical. The bastard smiles while everyone else stares in disbelief, wondering if the kid really killed the beast while flying midair. The protagonist, however, is more concerned with clinging to the wall and not falling into the abyss. Damn, not even 999 luck could save him this time. Or could it? Of course it could. Someone throws down a rope and pulls him up. Seriously though, why does it take 8 people to haul up a 50-kilo kid? End result, the mountain demolished an endless pile of insect corpses. Whatever the gamble had been, Yukihito came out on top. The redhead is overjoyed. Her friend says it's unbelievable they made it out without a single casualty. Even the NPCs drawn like MS Paint doodles are celebrating as the system announces he's exterminated a ridiculous number of insects. He receives the title Exterminator, which boosts his damage against any insect by 20%, and he also gains 3 levels, which honestly feels like nothing. Seriously, the guy wiped out like 3,000 bugs for just 3 levels. Granted, in this world is pure hell. Meanwhile, the bald man is kicking a wall in frustration. He hasn't even faced the protagonist directly yet, and he's already lost twice. And he knows the higher-ups are going to demand a heavy price for exposing the base and losing those underlings. It's all that bastard's fault. Out of nowhere, he takes a swig of his drink, smashes the bottle against the wall, and growls that he's going to kill him now, even if it meant sacrificing his own life. Alright then, let's see what he's going to do because our protagonist is heading into the dungeon, and all eyes are on him. Looks like the people he saved have been spreading stories, and now he's the popular one. The mountain destroyer Yukihito. Everyone knows he saved countless people, and now everybody wants to invite him into their parties. But he's pulling a Sung Jinwoo from solo leveling. He says he prefers to play solo. He can't take companions because that would only make getting the elixir harder. In battle, loot distribution is random. Back in that insect hunt, he realized that having more people on the team actually lowered the quality of what he received. Unfortunately, as amazing as his luck was, it wasn't omnipotent. So his plan is to go it alone. Next thing we see, he's at home surrounded by a banquet. Arigatou gozaimasu. His mother and sister are all smiles. That nostalgic feeling of happiness fills in the room, while his sister says she knows he's heading for the 20th floor and her mother worries. Only 15% of people make it through and the death toll is high. The protagonist tells her not to worry, he's the real deal, while his mother pleads with him not to push himself too hard. He remembers her sniffing the towel and says he's more concerned about her health than anything else. His sister thanks him, his mom laughs, and they all start eating. He gulps down some water, says he's off in search of the elixir, Arigatou again, and now we're finally at the 20th floor dungeon of the pillars. Explain this, 50 frames of him eating and chatting with his sister, and then suddenly he's in the dungeon, sprinting through and slashing everything in sight. The creatures there are inorganic types. They have no mercy for adventurers. If they get the chance, they'll kill you instantly. He's running when a gargoyle swoops from the side, but he whips around and lashes out with his sword. He keeps charging deeper until he finally stands face to face with the golem. The plan at first is to just observe the patterns and learn how the monster moves. He dodges its attacks until he's certain of its rhythm, then charges in and slashes its arm. The monster falls and he finds himself in front of the boss door. The outcome here would mark the start of a new life for him. As the door opens, he sees a strange chamber. He's never seen one like this before. Something in the center, and once you enter, the door seals shut. At least the cursed statue isn't here laughing at him. Just the ancient golem, the bastard guarding the elixir. The 20th-floor boss, armored and devastatingly strong. But Yukihito steps forward, knowing all it has are those stats. Its speed and patterns are predictable enough to handle. His plan is to land a direct strike right in the core. But wait, what's that bald guy doing there watching our protagonist? I don't know if it's his doing, but suddenly a second golem appears. Oh, so the bald guy slipped in, activated his own golem, and left Yukihito facing both. Absolute bug abuser, get back here so I can report you to the GM. Yukihito knows no beginner survives the 20th floor. This man deliberately turned it into a double dungeon. A knife comes flying and he blocks it, certain now that none of this is coincidence. The bald guy with the wide earrings notices how sharp the kid's reflexes are. But with multiple precise attacks and 2 golems against him, survival seems impossible. Only an idiot would challenge a boss that requires 4 people alone. The plan to force another golem spawn was perfect. Being a level 52 thief, it was easy for him to conceal a monster's presence. So while Yukihito is distracted, the man provokes the other golem, uses Shadow Step, and traps him once again. Not only does he have the thief class, he's also wearing an S-rank cloak of invisibility. For him, the situation is perfect. He's turned it into a 3 versus 1 and knows that sooner or later the kid will make a fatal mistake. Damn, this guy just won't quit, he keeps pushing. He poisons his blade and hurls it again, this time grazing Yukihito's cheek. At least the poison triggers, but thanks to luck, the effect fails. Takeshi finds it strange. That poison is extremely powerful. It shouldn't fail against someone at such a low level. But whatever. All he has to do is keep throwing things, and eventually the kid will get poisoned. I'll give him this while he's persistent. Anyone calling him a dumb villain is trolling. He's tossing bombs, rigging the pillars with traps, setting up electric fences, smoke bombs, you name it. He's burning through everything. Meanwhile, the protagonist is just like, hey, let me kill my little golem here, please. Takeshi sets so many traps down there that even he can't stand in it anymore. He's forced to hang up high. But then one of the golems slams the ground and his expression changes. Yukihito asks if he's done with all of his cheap tricks yet. Right then, Takeshi realizes maybe the kid knew everything all along. As Yukihito picks up a dagger from the ground, he calls him out to come down and join the fight. Things are more interesting here. Takeshi is shocked. How did the kid even locate him when he's cloaked with invisibility and using the thief class? Yukihito explains that the basic ability of warriors is intuition. For him, that kind of thing doesn't work. Takeshi isn't dumb. He says with Yukihito's low level, intuition alone isn't nearly enough. Obviously, the protagonist probably just got lucky. But Yukihito smirks and says, so what if I'm lying? What are you going to do about it? Leave the room. At that moment, Takeshi decides enough is enough. He unsheathes 2 daggers and charges in. The protagonist blocks him straight up and throws him back, declaring that now they'll see who's the last one standing. I saw someone comment on this and I've got to agree. Considering this is a Chinese story, isn't it missing a towering giant girl? There's always one of those powerhouses in Chinese works. But nope, no giant girl, just a bald guy getting tossed across the room, wondering how Yukihito spotted him with nothing but low-level warrior intuition. But Yukihito knows the guy will never believe it. The truth is, intuition really is the basic skill he received, and it works through probability. And probability changes completely when you've got his kind of luck. His minimap shows absolutely everything. The traps, the pillars, the monsters. Where Takeshi is, everything he set up. The thief pushes forward, admitting the kid is impressive for such a low level. Yukihito thanks him for the compliment, and the honest back and forth continues while the golems loom nearby. Takeshi is losing his mind, saying that with his agility, it's only a matter of time before Yukihito gets nailed by a clean strike. And sure enough, he lands one, stabbing into the protagonist's arm. At least Yukihito manages to resist the paralysis. Takeshi even praises that, asking how the hell he keeps resisting abnormal status effects. Yukihito slips to the side, trying to come in from behind for a strike. But Takeshi isn't slow. He dodges, of course. Then Yukihito activates Beast Sting, an attack with a guaranteed hit rate. But the bastard counters with Butterfly Dance, dodging everything and creating an illusion. Takeshi explains that the only way to escape a guaranteed hit is with perfect evasion. He sends 2 more strikes Yukihito's way and one connects with his leg. Takeshi grins, it's just a matter of time now before the boy collapses. And then right on cue, the golem fires a laser. But since Yukihito had just taken a hit to the leg, he stumbles into a crouch, dodging the blast by accident. Takeshi laughs, shouting that this is the 20th floor, full of surprises. He keeps dodging the boss, dodging the kid, waiting for the moment when Yukihito will eventually get exhausted. He lunges for another strike and Yukihito blocks, trying to think of a solution. And right then he feels a strange pain. He got distracted from the minimap and stepped right into one of the traps. Takeshi cheers. Finally, the boy fell into one. Now it's time to finish this business on the 20th floor. He unleashes his sharp scorpion strike. The protagonist tries to block, but he's thrown back, slammed into the wall. Damn, I thought this was going to be easier. The kid's really struggling. And the bald man steps forward, bloodlust in his eyes, saying it ends here. The protagonist screams desperately, then suddenly shifts his expression, saying he was just kidding. He presses a block on the wall, and Takeshi is trapped inside a glowing purple orb. Takeshi realizes it's a gravitational snare. The worst part, he can't even open his mouth properly to speak. The pressure is too much. Yukihito tells him he's an idiot for charging in during a boss fight. When he turned this into a double dungeon, the way the dungeon worked had changed. He calls it shameful that a high-class thief didn't notice the traps the bosses had set. Takeshi screams that it's impossible. How could this bastard warrior notice what even he couldn't? And then the boss lands a brutal strike, knocking him straight out of the grabby field, slamming him into the wall. His body crashes down, blood pooling, and the two golems grab him together, smashing him to the ground again. I thought he'd be ripped in half, but judging by the limp body and the spreading blood, that's the end of him. He dies wondering how it's possible, while Yukihito smiles and says it's the intuition of a warrior. He adds that if the guy is still alive by the time he finishes with the boss, he'll hand him over to the police. I don't know if that's good. It makes the protagonist look like some noble guy, when I personally like the villains. But at the same time, with his ridiculous luck, he'll definitely be rewarded, so maybe it's worth it. But wait, I spoke too soon. The bald guy stands back up, laughing, telling Yukihito not to mess with him. At this point, both of them were going to die there. He straps on a vest packed with dynamite, saying it's enough to bring the whole place down. Yukihito tells him to stop being insane, but he just keeps laughing, declaring it's the end for them both. 100 sticks of dynamite ignite, and the dungeon really does start to collapse. Yukihito tries to shield himself, but the ground splits open beneath him, and he falls into the abyss. Considering he's got 9999 luck, that fall must land him somewhere with an extremely rare artifact. Looking up, he counts how many floors he's dropped through. Unbelievable, there really is a hidden chamber. And of course, the golem follows him down. This story doesn't let anyone rest. Everything has to be dealt with. Yukihito realizes the bastard has trapped him down here, but then he notices just behind a strange golden chest. Obviously, it's a secret treasure. The only problem, the two golems also descended, and in this cramped chamber, there's nowhere to dodge. His best option is to bet everything on that chest. He dashes straight for it. One golem swings, he slides, taking a slice to the knee, grabs onto the other's arm, and vaults toward the chest. But luck or not, he still takes a heavy blow across the body, sent flying, sword spinning, crashing into the wall. He celebrates that his ribs didn't shatter, only to realize another hammer strike is already coming. He sidesteps desperately, nearly avoiding it. No, actually taking the hit. Damn, the kid's legs are turned into spaghetti bolognese. Take it easy, golem. My boy's supposed to be the lucky one. How are you supposed to survive something like this? He's pounding the ground himself, wondering what kind of hell this is. The pain is excruciating, he feels like throwing up, but he refuses to give in. The chest is right there, and bam, another crushing blow. Now he's looking way too much like some Jinwoo. Still, he thinks back to those 70 years of pure agony and tells himself that was worse. Even without legs, he drags himself toward the glow, saying he won't give up now, and opens the chest. With his luck, this bracelet had to be ridiculously overpowered. He smiles at the item just as one golem comes at him from behind while the other charges up a laser. He slips it onto his arm and says it's not over yet. The item he received was a teleport bracelet. And guess what it does? Obvious. Teleports him. But it's random, not fixed. Of course, like always, there's some activation probability nonsense. Oh no, the chance is down 35%, it's only 15%. But wait, he's got 9999 luck. Will it work? The hand connects, and of course it works. Drama for nothing. What? I thought it would send him into the afterlife or something, but no. He reappears right behind the golem, legs mangled, driving his blade straight at its weak point. But this story never lets anything be easy. The monster whirls, slamming him with a shoulder check and firing a massive laser, tearing the place apart. Even the protagonist complains, saying this fight is way too hard. Just let him win already. Still, the item is busted. He teleports again, reappearing behind the other golem, striking its weak spot. Then the green one leans back, hurling him toward the purple one, which winds up a hammer strike. Another teleport, another slash at the weak point, and again he lashes out. He's actually starting to land blows now. The monsters have absurd health, turning and trading attacks non-stop, while Yukihito keeps abusing the mechanic, out from one onto the other over and over. The golems start losing their minds as cracks spread across their crystals. Slash after slash, teleport after teleport, all while he has no legs. That's what I notice. He literally can't touch the ground. He's fighting midair, refusing to quit. If they want him dead, they'll have to work harder for it. But both golems charge in from opposite sides, and Yukihito says this is how he ends things. He vanishes, forcing the green one to punch straight into the purple's core, cracking it wide open. At the same time, Yukihito appears overhead, activates Beast Sting, and lands a perfect critical strike. Actually, what's a perfect critical? Isn't a critical already perfect? That's redundant. Anyway, he draws his sword, charges the second golem, says his determination isn't over yet, and cuts deep, triggering a rainbow-colored ultimate. He starts blacking out, and the bracelet is cracking too, like some Walmart trinket begging for a recharge. But the system declares Yukihito has defeated the ancient golem and another ancient golem. Since there were two, he receives 2 elixirs. Beautiful. one for his mother and one for him since he's legless. Without hesitation, he downs his in a single gulp. A green glow floods the chamber, his body restores completely, and he's back to 100%. The other elixir rests safely in his hand. Perfect. The system then announces that because he achieved special conditions, he's earned new titles. Survivor grants plus 10 endurance. Giant Slayer gives plus 20 strength, and Champion of Justice adds plus 10 dexterity. He stores them in his inventory, smiling it's time to leave. With a sequence of leaps and teleports, he climbs out of the pit, but when he reaches the surface, the bald bastard is gone. Well, not gone, he blew himself up with 100 sticks of dynamite strapped to his chest. That's how it works. Nothing left of him. At least I hope so. At least now he had that death rank item, and the kid was proud, opening the door and saying this stage was complete. After that, he went straight to the guild, reported everything that happened, and even showed them the cloth he recovered. The receptionist immediately rushed out, calling the guild master, who came to thank him and asked if he'd be willing to do an interview and all that. But Yukihito couldn't care less. He just wanted to bring the elixir to his mother. Adios amigos, tengo cosas mayores que hacer. On the streets, though, things were different. Everyone recognized him now, even a billboard with his face plastered across it. He arrives home, opens the door, and his two girls are right there. He shows his mother that he brought her the strongest vodka of them all. At the hospital, the doctor confirms it. Yuki's illness is completely cured. The two can hardly believe it, but the doctor says it's expected, considering how rare an elixir is. The whole family embraces, the mother holding Yukihito's hand and thanking him. Overcome with emotion, he thanks her for raising him, remembering when he was just a miserable old man who had to watch her die helplessly. Nozomi cuts in, telling them to stop being dramatic and head back home. This wasn't the place for that. She then warns him he should keep an eye on his surroundings. What's happening? Suddenly, everything falls into darkness. Someone is watching from the window, approaching, saying it's such a tragedy. Out of nowhere, a blonde man appears, remarking how sad it is that such an admirable family will now be drowned in sorrow. The only comfort, he says, is that they're already in the hospital. Then he speaks aloud. We tried our best, but unfortunately, we couldn't save her. That way, he says, the family will have no choice but to accept it. The cause of death would simply be listed as a heart attack. It seems this man had stopped time preparing to strike Yukihito's sister, but Yukihito intervenes. The blonde freezes, shocked as Yukihito demands to know what he thinks he's doing. The man tries to understand how is Yukihito even moving right now, and the protagonist presses him, demanding he explain why he's here. That's when recognition dawns. This man, at least in theory, is the great hero, the most powerful adventurer ranked #1, the man the world depends on to be its savior. The blonde smiles, confirming it. He introduces himself, Oyama Cosmo Light, occupation, hero, rank, LGBT, just look at the badge. Yukihito asks why he's attacking Nozomi, but the hero insists he's the one asking questions. He wants to know why Yukihito can move inside the void barrier. That should only be possible for someone who has already experienced death. In other words, there's only one explanation. Yukihito must also be a regressor. Hearing this, Yukihito immediately guesses the man is on his second life. Light admits it, then explains that since they're both in this situation, the solution is simple. He's only here to eliminate the risks that could destroy the world. Yukihito doesn't understand. What does his sister have to do with the end of the world? Light explains she's one of the factors through the negative influence she will create in her future husband. Yukihito remembers the man who was supposedly destined to marry her and doesn't understand. Light clarifies that this man is someone extremely important on a global scale, and the collapse of his marriage will trigger such negative consequences that he'll abandon dungeon expeditions, monsters will go unchecked, and the world will suffer. So Nozomi indirectly would be the reason, and that's why Light says she has to be removed. He only wants to know if Yukihito understands his explanation. But Yukihito tells him the past is not the same as the future, which makes sense. He's already changed things. He paid off their mother's debts, meaning Nozomi will never be forced into prostitution and will never meet that man. That alone means the future has shifted, so there's no reason for Light to kill her. Light nods, but then says that unfortunately, instead of relying on theories, it's easier to simply act now and erase the uncertainty. The protagonist says he won't let that happen, while the blonde man asks him please not to act this way. He didn't want to kill the boy. He insists he's only doing this to save people, so why won't Yukihito accept that her death would reduce casualties? Yukihito tells him to get out of there immediately, but the blonde replies that he has an idea. If Yukihito wants her to live, he'll have to defeat him in battle. The protagonist asks why, and the blonde says it's because he wants to see just how special Yukihito really is. Yukihito warns him that he'll regret this, but the blonde only laughs, pulling up his status window, everything over 3,000, saying he's far beyond what the kid expects. Seeing that, Yukihito immediately knows he doesn't stand a chance. The blonde steps closer, telling him he must understand by now that he isn't strong enough to protect her. He explains that the rules of this world work the same as in the other one, something a regressor should already know. Activating the aura on his sword, he asks, will the sister die or will Yukihito fight? The poor kid hesitates. The chance of victory is almost zero. He could try to run using teleport, but that would only buy time. He'd have to stay glued to her side 24 hours a day and wouldn't be able to level up. With no better option, he says he'll fight. Light thanks him and tells him not to be afraid. He doesn't expect Yukihito to win. All he has to do is survive the void barrier for 10 minutes. But that wouldn't happen inside the hospital or else the place would be destroyed. Light steps through the window, saying they'll change the setting. Yukihito has no choice either. He leaps out, swearing he'll protect her. In the courtyard, Light says this will do, while Yukihito nervously asks him to take it easy. Light agrees, saying he'll start gently. But with a snap of his fingers, 5 magic circles appear, unleashing a full barrage of attacks at once. The protagonist shouts that this is not taking it easy, while the blonde just smiles. He summons clones, saying Yukihito will have plenty to deal with. Then he charges forward with them, calling it the bare minimum. Yukihito dives into his inventory, activating 2 substitute dolls. They absorb Light's strike, though he's thrown back. Light compliments his preparation, but warns that pure defense won't keep him alive for 10 minutes. That's when Yukihito pulls out the Staff of Nonsense, conjuring a meteor, declaring that he knows exactly how to handle this. Since items can be used simultaneously, he's got his own advantages. The meteor crashes down right on the so-called hero, but that short blonde brat survives unscathed. No way was this guy taking real damage. Just as expected, he steps out of the smoke, explaining that his regression gave him the void barrier skill. And judging from that meteor being cast through the staff, Yukihito must have some kind of ability tied to luck or probability manipulation. The protagonist notices the clones disappearing, stunned that the blonde figured it out so quickly. Light says it's obvious considering how Yukihito fights and the items he carries. Yukihito imagines he must think of luck as some trash ability, but Light shakes his head. He admits luck is useful, but insists that this world is full of irrational things, challenges no amount of luck can overcome. And now he'll prove to Yukihito that he's one of those things that can't be solved by chance alone. He summons the water mage, the plant mage, a fire titan, and a horde of creatures surrounding him. Yukihito answers that he already knew luck wouldn't solve everything, but he also saw something interesting. When Light exposed his status, Yukihito noticed his luck was at 0. He didn't want to do anything reckless in front of his family, but now he has no choice. What's he planning? He remembers his mother and says that whatever it takes, any method, any means, he'll make sure that doesn't happen. While Blonde keeps unleashing a barrage, saying this time he's going all out, the fire monster charges too, and Light tells Yukihito to show him just what this so-called luck is capable of. The protagonist waits for the attacks to close in, then opens his inventory and equips the teleport bracelet. He knew there was only one option here. The system runs a quick check. Success, and he vanishes. I thought he was about to pull off some insane play, but no. He just teleported to run away. What the hell? After all that buildup, he just bolts. Light chases after, flying, commenting that the item in the boy's hands is very convenient, though it's a shame his own flight magic is more than enough to catch up. Yukihito teleports again, saying he's curious to see what Light can really do. The protagonist throws himself into the middle of innocent bystanders and declares that if Light is really a hero, then he won't kill these people. Crazy move, but Light closes his eyes and admits that yes, he is a hero, and his duty is to protect people. Hurting them would be an unforgivable crime. He snaps his fingers, stopping himself from using high-scale magic. For real? He's going to fight honestly. He sheathes his sword, saying that even without large spells, it won't stop him. Damn, so this blonde kid's got principles. For someone who just tried to smash Nozomi's skull, this is a twist. Yukihito starts feeling confident, thinking his chances of survival are climbing, and pulls out his shield to brace himself. Light smiles, saying he's used to fighting people like this, opponents who think using civilians to scare him will work. Turns out he wasn't bluffing. The arrows flying around divert away from the civilians while still chasing Yukihito. One arrow hits the shield, ricochets, and blasts through a building. Light explains that as the apocalypse draws near, monsters disguised as humans begin to appear. Trackers multiply, crime escalates. All of it becomes normal. But Yukihito just keeps running, shouting that in his past life he never saw any of this. He'd been too busy farming slimes. Light says it's a shame. You should have seen how the world descended into total chaos. He even says he hoped the two of them, as regressors, could get along. Yukihito answers that, unfortunately, it isn't him preventing that from happening. He blocks another strike, gets blasted into a wall, and slowly forces himself up, admitting it's getting tough to fight in such a tight space. Light starts to say something, but Yukihito grabs a skateboard lying nearby and bolts, pulling tricks on the way out. Light just laughs, saying it's funny he actually thinks he can escape. He conjures a wall of light across Yukihito's path, cutting him off, and the moment Yukihito stops, Light appears behind him, ready to strike. Yukihito glances to the side, spots a pillar, and mutters that the timing is perfect. He kicks it, sending it crashing down, saying now it's time for a counterattack. Light looks alarmed, not because he's about to be crushed, but because behind him sits a civilian's car. He's forced to stop the collapse. Yukihito praises him, saying he really is a kind hero. Light answers that, of course, saving people is what he does every day. That's when Yukihito says he wants to see just how much he can really protect. Sparks erupt, surging through the city grid, water bursts from the ground, explosions ignite. What the hell? Is the protagonist turning into a terrorist now? Light is calmer than he is. Still, he's forced to summon a dinosaur to douse the flames with water, while Yukihito declares it won't be enough. Trees and the entire street are ablaze, the ground splits open into a crater, and Light can't understand how everything is breaking at once. He has no choice but to summon the other spirits, rushing to save the people falling, the cars being dragged down, everyone about to die. The protagonist tells him not to forget about him, but the blonde insists he should stay back. He's got too much to handle. Besides, are none of his attacks working anyway? Yukihito admits it's true. He can't deal any real damage, but that doesn't mean he can't interfere. He slams his shield into Light, knocking him off balance, and Light stumbles, shouting, "What the hell are you doing? Do you want to get people killed?" Yukihito just tells him to take a trip to the sewers. Light tries to hang onto the edge, but Yukihito slices him, sending him falling straight into the filth. Light says the kid makes no sense at all, but Yukihito points his staff, warning he could drop a meteor on the city at any moment. Finally, Light gives in, saying fine, he accepts. He's lost this ridiculous duel where he wasn't allowed to kill anyone. He explains that everything went wrong because of his own misfortune. For some reason, he's always caught up in bizarre accidents. That's why Yukihito's desperate defenses kept ending up destroying the entire city. The absurd clash of Yukihito's overwhelming luck with Light's endless bad luck created the catastrophe. Light admits he's impressed the kid knows the city so well. Yukihito replies that he remembers exactly how everything here happened, what exploded, and why, because he lived through it when he lost his family. He doesn't care if that was enough to calm the blonde down. Sweetly, Light says yes, but adds that Yukihito will have to accompany him for a while. The void barrier would disappear soon, and Light needed to fix everything, something Yukihito couldn't do. He also tells him to get back to the hospital to stop the disaster of Cursorborn. Maybe that's the name of Nozomi's supposed fiancé? The protagonist is confused. Light clarifies that he's talking about the disaster that will strike the hospital. Since Yukihito is a regressor, he should already know. But Yukihito insists he has no idea. Light frowns, thinking he's joking, but Yukihito stays serious. He really doesn't know. Light says it's impossible. How could a regressor not know? Yukihito explains he spent 70 years doing nothing but hunting slimes. Light deflates, telling him he'll have to come up with a plan. What are you thinking of doing? He asks. The protagonist admits he has no plan. He doesn't even know how this is supposed to work. So Light decides to explain. When the void barrier drops, Yukihito needs to run straight to the hospital. Once he's there, he'll start to understand. Yukihito still doesn't, but Light just tells him to follow orders and says he'll return soon. But he warns him not to do anything reckless or the consequences will be severe. Damn guy went on and on, said a bunch and explained nothing, then left. With no real choice, the protagonist uses teleport and the city resets to normal. Just then, the doctor tells Yukihito's mother that she'll now live for many more years. She thanks him, standing up while Yukihito stands quietly, lost in thought, trying to piece together what the blonde said, what might happen to the two of them, and what this hospital disaster could be. Just knowing danger is looming over them makes him feel sick. He decides he has to get them out as soon as possible. His mother asks if they should bring some food, but he says no. It's best they head home immediately. Once he gets back, he'll prepare something for them himself. He urges them to go quickly and be ready. They find it strange, but agree and leave. At that moment, Yukihito decides to investigate and figure out what's about to happen. He heads into the bathroom, puts on the cloak he took from Tenshi, the S-rank invisibility mantle, and tells himself this must be something no one talks about, something hidden in a part of the hospital only a few can access. He opens the door to leave, and a patient nearby jumps in fright, wondering if a ghost just passed by. Inside the elevator, he keeps wondering what this Cursorborn disaster is supposed to be. Light had said everything would become clear once he saw the first signs. Now here he is, in what looks like the morgue. A threat capable of leaving a scar on history should be something on the level of a disaster-class creature. But when he checks his radar, nothing. Right ahead is the morgue door. He slowly steps inside. The smell of death lingers in the air as he approaches, trying to figure out what's about to happen. He paces back and forth, searching for clues, but finds nothing. Then, when he opens the system menu, he suddenly feels something strange. One of the corpses begins to rise. Not just one. In fact, all of them start standing up, moving toward him. At that moment, he understands why the blonde said it would be easy to figure out once it began. Seeing the zombies, the protagonist recalls that in his past life there had been some kind of necromancer or creature around this time. Since all of these things are undead, it makes sense. The first charges at him, and he swings, head sliced clean off. Another lunges, he tears it in half. A third comes from the side, he kicks it back. In his past life, these creatures have been handled through a proper ritual. But here, no one knows that yet. He'll have to improvise. At least this curse doesn't spread to humans, so he doesn't have to worry about bites. The creatures are stupid. Just toss a chair on them, and they stumble around confused, coming at him one by one. While blocking one side, he pushes forward, decapitating another, slicing through more, smashing one with a table, until most of them are down. Oh, actually he sets up a barricade, leaving a few on the other side. Then he notices something. One of the bodies has a gold necklace. That means it was once a high-rank adventurer. But as zombies, none of their abilities remain. He finishes another, but suddenly the door behind him rattles. He glances back, 2 more step through. He cuts one in the neck easily, but when he moves to strike the other, he stops. The system isn't marking her as a red enemy, so she isn't dead. The woman, looking half dead, begs him not to cut her. She isn't gone yet. Yukio is startled, asking if she's one of the workers here. Unfortunately, she can barely speak. She isn't a zombie, but she's already cursed. Without the right tools and items, she won't survive. Now he hesitates. The easiest path would be to ignore her and just clear out the zombies behind the barricade. But he isn't someone obsessed with efficiency or speedrunning through everything. So he pulls out his portal. Off he goes to a merchant, an alchemist, even to a prayer hall to grab a book. He reads up in the city and returns. The woman is still collapsed there. Looks like the teleport also freezes time. But from the purple spreading on her fingers, the curse has advanced. He takes a drop of her blood, puts it in a vial, and begins mixing all the items he gathered. According to the text, it's just a matter of combining them and beginning the ritual. Guess what happens? With his poor skill in sacred medicine, the chances of success are almost non-existent, 1% at best. And yet, of course, it works. He kneels beside the unconscious woman, places the vial at her lips, and lets the liquid flow. Careful where you repeat a line like that, it could get you locked up. But it works. She stirs and life returns. Maybe she's the first real female character in this story, aside from his mother and sister. Satisfied, he sets her gently aside, draws his sword, and turns back toward the barricade. Time to finish the zombies. But now he notices something strange. The barricade is far too quiet. No wonder this woman was still alive. When he checks, some of the zombies are merging together into blobs of black sludge. The bodies look like they're being absorbed, turning into one massive creature with countless arms and a skeletal head. The protagonist wonders if slimes weren't supposed to be the only monsters that absorb things so easily. Apparently, the curses placed on each body had all pooled into this one. This was the price he had to pay for not killing every single zombie earlier. That blonde bastard would laugh at how inefficient he'd been. But he saved that woman, so he doesn't regret it. He charges forward as the monster lashes out with its tentacles. He swings and slices off a head. Too easy, right? Of course, the thing's still alive. It strikes again, and he cuts another head. Dangerous as hell, but there's no other choice. He keeps chopping them off. 3, 4 more go down, and he thinks maybe it's handled. But the creature keeps growing, sprouting even more, glaring down at him. And not just that, it's pulling in more corpses, regenerating as it goes. Yukito can't believe this. Why is this zombie so busted? They're supposed to be brainless fodder. Worse, no matter how many heads he cuts, it's not faster than the monster regenerating. The problem is that most warrior skills are built for single-target combat, not area attacks. His only real option would be the Staff of Nonsense, but he can't just summon a meteor inside a hospital. Another idea crosses his mind. Maybe he could buy time until the blonde shows up, but that hope vanishes when he sees the creature sucking in more bodies, growing even larger. The monster doesn't give him a second to think. More tentacles slam down, forcing him to dodge while the entire room shatters around him. He knows he has to kill it quickly before it becomes unstoppable. That's when reality hits him. He just got promoted to silver rank. He's nowhere near strong enough to finish something like this in a single strike. Scrambling for solutions, he remembers the medical supplies piled in the corner. Blocking another attack, he racks his brain for any recipe, spell, or trick that might help. Suddenly, an idea sparks. He could craft something. He rips the legs off the stretchers, shaping them like pipes. The monster smashes down again, and he mutters about how damn impatient it is. He tosses another stretcher into his inventory, grabs a piece of metal, and readies his shield as the thing lunges. Dodging to the side, he pulls out the book from earlier, flipping through until he finds a recipe for black powder. The problem, he needs potassium nitrate, sulfur, and charcoal. Where the hell was he going to find those? The easy solution would be teleporting, but he's already running on empty and needs to recharge. So he decides to improvise here. In the corner he spots wood. He can turn it into charcoal by burning it. He throws it into the alchemy pot. Success, though the system warns of extremely low probability. Next problem, sulfur and potassium nitrate. He pulls something from his inventory and hurls it at the monster to buy time, then grabs his phone to search information from his old world. Turns out sulfur can be sourced from incense, and in a morgue, incense is used everywhere to mask the stench. Sure enough, he spots one, but it's already burned out. He checks the collapsed woman, rummages around and finds a few matches, lights them, scrapes off the residue, tosses it into the alchemy pot. Sulfur acquired. And not just sulfur. The system confirms potassium nitrate as well. With that, black powder is crafted. Now he just needs ammunition. The kid's really trying to build a weapon in the middle of a cursed hospital fight. What the hell is happening? I don't know what this guy is thinking, but he's grinning over the book, excited, while the monster lashes its tongue and charges at him. Of course, now that he's finished the recipe, the beast rushes in. At that moment, he uses a sheet of paper to complete the alchemy of an item never before seen in that world. The chances of success were low. The higher his luck, the better the result would be. And with that, a double-barreled shotgun is created. The protagonist immediately pulls out not one, but two, saying these are perfect for a like on this video that helps Mamoru make more juicy content for his viewers. Activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.